And gentlemen, to House of Footy, we are back again with another episode, and this time we are covering the FIFA 2022 World Cup in Qatar. I am Ray, your host for today, and I'm joined by Mac.
I love the World Cup.
Oh yeah, for sure. And today's podcast, we're going to be covering just that: the opening games of the World Cup with action from groups A and B. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social medias. That's both on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us, and our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. You may already know if you tuned into our last podcast, but we are now uploading House of Footy YouTube videos. So please, if you can, like, comment, and of course, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our content. If you want to hear our hot takes, go on our YouTube channel and watch our predictions and even our live House of Footy bracket. The link for that will be in our bio for on Twitter and Instagram. But let's get straight into it. Opening game, Qatar 0, Ecuador 2. And Gio mentioned here, obviously a very interesting game heading into it, but not for the actual footballing reasons, but for the rumors of, the Qatar, I guess, I'm not sure if it was government or team. They tried to bribe the Ecuadorian players to get an opening day win, which if you were watching early in that game, you could make a case for it. But honestly, throughout the first half and basically throughout the game, you could really tell Qatar were not up to the standard of Ecuador, and Ecuador really just on the field basically dominated, had more chances, looked more comfortable as well, even though a large periods of time Qatar had the ball in their own sort of build up from the back. But yeah, Ecuador won 2-0, 2 goals from Ener Valencia, and that's pretty much it for the first game. What did you think, Mac?
First of all, the first couple minutes, it was at Twitter was absolutely amazing. I was 100% here for it. So this is how I had it for me. I had on my monitor, I was watching, of course, the game, but on on my smaller screen up on the top, I had Twitter open, and I will not lie to you, about 2 minutes into the game, I flipped it too, because Twitter became the most important thing for a couple minutes there. Especially once that goal was called off by VAR, and they legitimately did not show a replay of why they called it off. It was absolutely amazing. And that's why Twitter, at the same time, I could understand why some people would pay for it, and it's hilarious. Or would end up paying for it. But either way, overall, an enthralling first game, especially early on. Of course, as the game got wore on, I would have to say it got kind of boring, because you could tell Qatar really didn't have a shout, didn't really have anything to be able to bring into the match, to be able to play against Ecuador. And Ecuador, for themselves, to be able to start off with the positives, I guess, is that they did what they were supposed to do. They got all 3 points, they performed well, kept a clean sheet, 1-2-0. And you got to give them full credit in regards to their ability to just expose a really weak Qatar team. They knew the areas of the pitch where they can be very successful. Estunian, the left back, Estunian, I think that's how you pronounce it. Left back was absolutely outrageous in terms of his overlapping runs. And time again, it created 2-on-1s on the right-hand side for Qatar, and they just couldn't manage. They couldn't deal with it. So overall, they knew that going in. Qatar really did not change anything throughout the entire game, didn't have an adjustment, and unfortunately couldn't handle Ecuador repeatedly. And I'm surprised, to be honest, that Ecuador didn't score more goals. That's what really should have been my main takeaway from this game. What about you?
Yeah, honestly, I guess referring to one of the only chances that stood out to me for Qatar was the last play of the first half, when it was the first time that Qatar actually went past the wide backs, the Ecuador wide backs. Balls put in, and I think it was Ali who missed basically a free header, and it really showed. Obviously, that was a first real chance. He didn't really have other opportunities, and so when that comes to you, likely you won't be able to take advantage of it. And so, like you said, the wide players for Ecuador really stood out for me. They really very, very solid offensively and defensively. They know their roles defensively and then linking up offensively. You can really tell that Ecuador is going to be, I think, a team that will look to hit you on a counter, especially against. We'll talk about it. The likes of Senegal, and the Netherlands. But yeah, man, gotta give it to Ecuador, and obviously the standout player, Ender Valencia. I gotta ask you, Matt, because I know Ender Valencia played in the APL previously, but currently he's playing club football in Turkey with Fenerbahce. In 12 matches, how many goals do you think he has? 12 matches for Fenerbahce.
I'm gonna go with a low number here because I think that's the name of this game. I'm gonna go 2 as well.
2?
Yeah.
You said 2?
I'm gonna go.
He has 13 league goals for Fenerbahce. I went
the complete wrong way on that one. Holy fuck. Okay, never mind. Hey. He's in blistering form. That I thought this game was gonna go low. Okay.
Hey man,
that's a phenomenal record.
Honestly, I didn't really expect it at all, and so when you see him really playing that well, it really shows. And so they're definitely going to be a team to look out for. But let's quickly talk about, I guess. Do you want to mention the offside? You mentioned it already, but basically the offside was basically the foot of the player that was ahead of the guy that was heading the ball.
See,
can you explain to me?
The funny part is, it's been almost 36 hours since the game. And I don't have a clear understanding of why that was called offside. I've seen the screenshot where my man's leg is in front of that line. Okay, I get that. Cool. That's great. But can we slow down and get a reverse angle of exactly what happened here? Because from the buildup of the play, a ball goes into the Qatari box. There's the Qatari goalkeeper completely is in shambles. He tries to make a play for the ball. There is an Ecuadorian player and another Qatari player there as well. From that contact, they said, okay, that guy is offside. Even though when the play had gone in, the ball had gone in into the box, that's when he should have been deemed offside or onside. The only way that I can kind of see this around is that there's 2 Ecuadorian players close by potentially competing for that ball. If it went off one of them and then hit the other one, okay.
Yeah.
However, they refused to show the play. We did not get a replay of that. They just showed us that cut line, and it was it. That was it. However, I do have to say, for me, that's fine. I'm going to allow that to slide. VAR, and we'll go into this in the later games, was very, very questionable for me and didn't have a 10 out of 10 performance over the course of the first opening games. But it would have been worse, and it would have created, I guess, a whole new level of, complaints or issues if any of the other goals were taken away. Because, for example, a penalty, I guess, from a certain angle, maybe the goalkeeper doesn't make that much of a contact on I think it's Ender Valencia again, going shifting by the goalkeeper to create the penalty, which he ended up scoring. But that was a clear and obvious penalty, right? So the burden of, okay, there's something wrong with this World Cup, and the bribery is as real as it seems, even though it is. That, for me, really kind of shut the door on that. However, I guess, to your opinion, I think I said in the chat, did you see Ian Wright or other people, big name people, commenting on this, going a little bit offside? What was your first thought?
It was tough, right? You're thinking now, goal so early in the game in such a big high state match. You're kind of thinking, is there a conspiracy that they're trying to look for something wrong with the goal? And so that always, puts it in the back of your head that they're looking out for the host team, which it could be, it could not be. But hey, regardless of what was called, man, it really played out in the game where obviously you see Ecuador winning based on their merit and wanted to just bring it back to their first goal. And Valencia, as you mentioned, brought down the box. How casual did he look walking up to that penalty?
It looked like he could not give less of a fuck if he scored. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
And that maybe was his, I guess, with his blistering form in Fenerbahce, maybe he's I'm going to score this no matter what. That's prime Mario Balotelli to me, who's always the most fearful penalty taker I've ever seen, where if I'm the goalkeeper, I think he's going to score on me. You got me. Well done. Congrats. But he looked completely calm, cool, and collected. Absolutely phenomenal. Um, for that goal. And I guess do you want to touch on the second goal before we kind of go through the implications of I guess what happens here, the header? Do you want to run us through that and kind of what happened there?
Yeah, I guess I can't remember exactly who the wide player is, but Ener Valencia is sort of peeling up to the back post, and doesn't really make a move in front of the defender. It kind of gets a free header where it kind of doesn't even get full contact. I think on his head. I think it might have gone off his shoulder as well. But hey, great positioning, great way to actually get some contact, and really gave the keeper no chance for that goal. Ener Valencia. So great goal again, and really, yeah, just wanted to ask you now, Ecuador. Gio really thinks Ecuador wasn't amazing, but Qatar didn't really have much to them. So I guess your opinion, what do you think of this Ecuador team so far?
I think it's to be determined, really. The game against Senegal, which we'll come to, has been zeroed in prior to the tournament as kind of the game that will decide potentially who can go through between the two of them. And I think that's pretty consistent. So that's something that we'll definitely dive in maybe if we eventually preview this game, because I think every other team in that group is like, okay, yeah, we get 3 points to get to Qatar. That's 3 points.
Yeah,
Because I think that they considering how little much they offered going forward, it's really how soon do you get them to concede, and then can you kind of bundle in more goals from there to be able to help a little difference. And they got to go into the next game just focusing. We want to keep a clean sheet and see if we can get something a little bit more offensively. Can we apply a little bit of press in certain moments so they can try to get on the front foot? But I'm very skeptical to see if they can, considering there was no fight back against this Ecuador team, and especially because that type of performance. I know that maybe it doesn't play to their mind, but it's your of course the first game, World Cup game played in your home country, because of course there's never been a World Cup held there before, as well
right.
as the host nation previous to this had never lost a game, right? And there, you always have that little bit of extra juice, a little bit of excitement, where you have a little bit more kind of willingness to go out and do something. But this team didn't really have it, unfortunately. So hopefully they are able to respond, because and otherwise they're going to be in for a rough tournament. However, I guess for Ecuador, like I said, their focus should be on the next game, because I think their next game is against Senegal, if I remember correctly, and then they face Netherlands. I think that's the order that it goes through. Do you know if I'm wrong on that?
They actually face the Netherlands
They
next.
face the
Ecuador.
Netherlands first. Fair enough.
Netherlands.
So
Senegal will be the last one.
yeah, so that'll be an interesting matchup for them, because if they pick up anything there, then the pressure's on Senegal. So it'll be very important for them going into that next game, just to try to focus on that, facing another team that did pick up all 3 points. What are your thoughts? Do you think they might have a little bit more to them? Do you see them as maybe being that second or first place team coming out of this group?
Ooh, first might be tough, but definitely second. I like how they're very, very well drilled, and they have players that obviously have quality in them. In the middle of the field, as you've highlighted in our preview podcast, a player to watch will definitely be Caicedo. His ability to not only drop deep and collect the ball, but he's also able to advance the ball as well into forward areas. Him, as we touched on it, Ener Valencia, and even the wide players, Estupinian on one side, and I think the right back as well, whose name escapes me right now, but he looked pretty decent as well. So they're definitely going to be a tough team to beat. Whether they have enough to be the second place team in this group, we'll have to wait and see. But enough of that. Let's move on to another game. In this game, a lot of goals. England 6, Iran 2. And on paper, it seemed like a pretty lopsided affair, which it was. Mac, give us your thoughts on this game.
I absolutely loved it. I woke up today at 8 a.m. to watch this game, and I was ecstatic all the way through. I wasn't when I first looked at the lineup, because how they England started out. It wasn't surprising to me where they had Kane in between Sterling and Saka as a front three. Right. Of course, I would have wanted Foden to be played a part on the pitch. I think the real difference would have been is that on the front three, for me, that was very much expected, but they did decide to go with the back four with Maguire and Stones, Trippier, Shaw, and then a midfield three of Mount, Rice and Bellingham, right? So the main difference would have been is that in most lineups, people may have projected for some of England's game, or eventually what they may end up switching to against the bigger games is, of course, Mountain and not having that extra center back, right? I think that choice of system worked out very, very well. It allowed the attacking players to be able to get an extra man forward. That gave Bellingham full kind of free roam to be able to still be able to join up and join the attack as well, because he knew that Rice was still there. So how it broke down, instead of it allowed an extra man to be able to break free for England, and I think it created so many different problems for Iran. Unfortunately for them, their game plan, and going back into historically through the World Cup, has always been, they've been sound defensively, they've been drilled, they kind of know their shape, they know when to press. But once, if they do concede an early goal, if they ever try to get back into a game, there isn't as much quality up top. Even though in this tournament there is.
Right.
Their striker Tarami, he has performed very, very, very well in the Champions League. He scored a bundles of goals. He's playing very well for his club. But the rest of the team there isn't as much there. So for England, what they're able to do is get those extra men, apply that high press, retain possession. Overall, I think they had almost 70% possession throughout the entire game. So phenomenal performance. And as an England fan, it was really everything that you could ask for. Well, can you join me in my enjoyment and excitement of this team?
I definitely have to join you in the excitement because, as you pointed out, typically you see a back three with this England team, but hey, he changed it up. Changed up to a back four for this game, and it had to be, right. We mentioned that they needed to get a win and a solid performance in this game to set themselves as the team to beat in this group, and they did, going with more of an attacking lineup. So I'm glad to see that, because that's definitely that's been one of his heavy criticisms. And obviously Southgate now shows, he has the quality, and he can change things up to be more positive. And the 6 goals, what more can you ask for? I guess the 2 goals conceded might be the only criticism for this game. But even on that, after the 4th goal, there were a lot of subs getting ready to come on. A couple were delayed because they did concede that goal 3 minutes after they scored the 4th one. But at the end, you still saw the likes of Callum Wilson involved, Jack Grealish, as you mentioned, Foden, who we thought might start. He came on as well. So definitely positives, not just with the starting lineup. Kane didn't really get on the score sheet, but he did assist. But you got players coming in and doing their job. So definitely, if they get another win, that really sets them up to, in the last game, they could switch things up if needed. I guess, do you want to quickly touch on some of the goals, Mac?
Yes. So firstly, in terms of Saka, because he scored Jude Bellingham's goal. Let's start there, because we both have a love and admiration for Jude Bellingham and wish for him to play in England, maybe in different clubs in the near future. But that was very much a Jude Bellingham goal. That late run into the box, kind of very similar to a lot of what you may see from one of his icons growing up, Stephen Gerrard. It gave me very similar vibes into that late run in the box, be able to compete for the header. Phenomenal header. Going in, he was able to just kind of ghost in there, and in that more freer role with this formation provided, it allowed him to be able to do that. So you absolutely love to see that. And he became the second youngest player to ever score for England at the World Cup, second to actually Liverpool legend Michael Owen, who is the youngest player. However, the best part is, a couple minutes later, when Saka scores, he becomes the 3rd youngest player to ever score for England at the World Cup. So you absolutely love to see it overall. And then actually, of course, since Saka scores again, technically he's also the 4th youngest player to ever score, just because he's a couple minutes older. Is that how it works? I don't know.
Don't think so, but hey, I like that approach, because he deserves it. Well taken goals. The first one knocked down by none other than Harry Maguire, who I think had a pretty decent game. I think you were saying in our group chat. But also the second goal, the ability to, that's what you want in a wide player, to really isolate that defender, draw him in, and then go to work. Basically, he cooked for that second goal of his, which was the 4th goal for England. But yeah, I even have to mention, obviously, Kane and Sterling, their 3rd goal, Kane assisting Sterling, and then Sterling being the one assisting the fourth goal. It may not be on the score sheet, but definitely they're playing a role in those goals. So great to see that, and all the front sort of four getting involved for those goals.
Yeah. It's definitely important because you want to be able to make sure it's very good for players and their confidence to get their goal early in a tournament, because that will make them feel more confident going into the future games, as well as players like Rashford and Saka, who, of course, after the Euro was missing penalties and definitely suffered a lot of abuse after that. And coming into this game, both scoring, playing very, very well. It's just going to kind of fuel their energy to be able to make sure. So whenever on their pitch, because everyone is fighting for spots every single game, especially in that front three, except for Kane, of course. You want to be able to make sure that whenever you do have the opportunity, that you have the confidence to be able to take it. So it's great to see that the goals were really spread around between the team. I do want to say, though, in terms of Harry Maguire, of course, he did come off due to concussion protocol, so he may be a question mark for their next game. He had a monster performance as well. You can definitely see I think the cure for him at Man U. I know I was kind of saying in our group chat where he just needs a good center back beside him, and then he maybe will perform well. But maybe he should just wear an England jersey underneath the Man U jersey. It doesn't make sense, because he, even in his complaints generally have been is like, oh, when he plays in a 4, he is sus. I understand, right. Of course, Iran might not be the team that's best going to be to come at him and to create something, so might be take it with a grain of salt. But I haven't seen him play this well since the last England tournament, so it's nice to see, and I'm glad that he's performing well. I did want him to score the header, just to do the celebration where he plugs his ears, and every Man U England fan would be like, I don't know what to do now. Do I celebrate the goal because England have scored, or what do I do?
Man, that for sure, that would have been fun. I think that you're referring to the very first chance that they had, right? Like the 31st minute mark. Yeah, that would have been nice. Which leads me, I guess, to question just quickly before we take a break. I guess England should be still, as we predict, the favorites, and it looks like Iran will struggle for that second position. What do you think?
Absolutely. England are definitely favorites in this group, and we'll kind of come on to the other results in this group later on. But that was it going in. They now, with this lead, the 4-goal positive on goal difference, I put them in a very strong position where I think they really, if they win their next game, they should, which is against the United States, they should see themselves as kind of gone through and in a similar position as Euros the round before, where maybe we do some squad rotation, we can get other players on the pitch and let everyone enjoy the World Cup experience. 100%. Whereas Iran, they need to now in the next game, considering, because in this such a short tournament, in this group stage, you don't want to lose your first game, because then you're pressing. You need to come out with a win in the follow-up game, and that's what they need. Otherwise, I feel like their tournament might be already wrapped up. I do want to touch on just the VAR incidents in terms of the first half. With Harry Maguire kind of getting held, and then he fell down. No penalty was called, but VAR overturned when John Stones had a kind of a hand to a jersey. So it'd be very interesting to see, because in my opinion, I have enjoyed the quote unquote VAR experience, especially more recently with how quick and efficient it's been, and it's definitely been more consistent. But if, for example, the game was 2-1 at that moment and that penalty is called, and everyone's looking back at the other one, people are going to would have been reacting very, very differently. So hopefully that's not something that we see going forward in the tournament, because and a lot of people are drawing attention to that, hopefully, because going forward, you don't want something like that to decide a game for sure. Yeah,
definitely. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out on the remaining games. We'll obviously have some more games to to review as well. And on that note, we'll take a quick break here, and then we'll be right back. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to continue our podcast for today, reviewing the matches from Group A and B of the World Cup. Next game we're going to cover is Senegal 0, Netherlands 2. And honestly, we previewed this game saying Netherlands should be favorites, but Senegal didn't look bad at all. Gio mentioned they just need to be a little more clinical. Definitely feeling the loss of Sadio Mane for sure. On that note, though, I did want to point out Ismail Sarr. I'm not gonna, say I was right, but I was right. He should be one of the players to to watch. I'm not sure if you saw the touch that he had at the 24th minute mark. Ball comes over the top, and he's able to control it over his shoulder. Zidane style. But anyways, definitely a bright spot for them. They, I think, really, really interesting sort of approach to the game. You always know Netherlands will try to build up from the back, and Senegal had a high press, but not at all times. It was more so a pressing when, and it's interesting when the ball came into the middle where De Jong and Berghaus were occupying those spaces, and really did turn them over a couple times. Could have gone ahead with in the first half with a few chances, but ultimately didn't. And I guess you can say they paid for that price because late into the second half, goal came from Cody Gakpo, a player that we also highlighted saying that might have a interesting tournament. He was able to get in ahead of Edouard Mendy and put Netherlands up. But Mac, what were your thoughts on this game?
I wasn't surprised in terms of the overall performance because I had gone to the tournament being a little bit suspect in regards to Netherlands creating chances in the final third, and that really played out for large portions of this game. They're very, very good in the possession. Defensively, the back three between. I was a little bit surprised Dillit started because he hasn't started. It's been Timber over him, but I'm glad to see him
Right.
play with Van Dijk and Ake as a back three, and you have De Jong in front of them. That's as good of a base as you can get in really world football, in my opinion. And between the four of them, they were so phenomenal at creating, keeping possession, rotating the ball. I thought De Jong for me was the standout player in terms of he had just over 85% passing accuracy. He created two different chances, had an assist, and he won three fouls. So definitely for me, he was the man of the match in regards to his performance. And something I think going forward will be very, very key for Netherlands because in a creative sense, he's definitely needed. However, I think you're absolutely correct in regards to earlier on in the game, it was kind of a 50-50 with not many chances between either team. They both kind of lacked that final killer pass, that final killer move. Ismail Sarr, he had that one moment where he kind of shifted the ball right to left and tried to be able to cut off our post and but it went off Van Dijk's head. That was probably the only cut moment for me. For Senegal, I think Netherlands had a couple earlier on in the game, but
Yeah.
still nothing for me. Nothing outstanding. So it's unfortunate for Senegal to concede in the manner they did, in my opinion. And I know we'll touch on that later, but overall, if you are a Dutch fan, you got to be happy with picking up 3 points. If you come out to a tournament and you win the first game, you really set yourself up to do well in the group stage and move out with such a short round, as we just touched on with England. So it's good to see for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you wanted, a clean sheet and a couple goals, even though I guess we'll get straight into the goals. The first one coming from Cody Gakpo, you mentioned it, Frankie de Jong getting the assist. But do you think Edouard Mendy, who obviously balls played in a great area, so credits to de Jong, but you'd expect a goalie with the caliber of Edouard Mendy, Champions League winner actually, would be able to command that ball. What do you think, Mac? I think there's a lot of people online saying should be doing better, and then definitely we can touch on the second goal. But what did you think about the first goal?
It's tough because I feel like he has to come out and make a play on the ball. That's a tough part. In regards to his starting position is probably where my question would be. Is he a little bit too far back where he has to give himself so much room to recover and he's not paying attention to Cody Gakpo, and you can see in his face that he's surprised that someone else is there to make contact. So hasn't been really aware of his surroundings. So I do agree that of course it is a goalkeeping error, but I understand that that's a really tough position to be in because if he doesn't make contact, and I feel like if he stays on this line, very likely where the header ended up going in, it still ends up going in the back of the net, in my opinion. So it's tough on him, but he's had such an interesting career where he was, in my opinion, I guess as maybe might be naive, but in a span of 2.5 years, he was absolutely nobody to Champions League winner to now a liability for his team, and Kepa starting over you. So it's been such an interesting 3-year career arc for him, and it's unfortunate that it's continued in the World Cup thus far. What do you think?
Yeah, and So obviously, there's been times where his decision making and I guess his I can remember clearly the Leeds game where Chelsea played where he was at fault for not being able to play out of the back. As a keeper, goals that are your mistake are going to stand out a lot more because obviously you're there to stop them from going in. His shot stopping, I think, is up there with De Gea's, but at times his decision making and maybe playing out from the back is questionable, which nowadays in modern football is what you're judged up on. So yeah, definitely, I think he's still a great goalkeeper, but just that, I guess, little bit of consistency at the times when he's needed the most might drop him down a peg from that world class level. And I just wanted to point out the second goal where Depay gets the ball on the right hand side of the box, cuts in on his left hand side, shoots it with his left foot, which I think he obviously Mendy makes a save, and I think he could have done better to push it out further, but he pushes it just into the path where Klaassen is able to get onto it, and put it in. And that's it's a little harsh because it was essentially the last play of the game, but still, that really puts a question mark on him. And so definitely Senegal will be looking to make things right. Their next game is against obviously Qatar, so not a lot of time to sulk about that result. They have to go straight into that next game looking to get points. So I guess on your for you, Mac, Senegal, Ecuador, what do you think? Who do you think will come out second? Is it too early to predict?
My opinion going into this tournament was Ecuador. I thought they were in a good position. I really was happy in regards to how they've played. And in this first game, nothing has really changed me from that. Where I do feel like the structure of Ecuador, the way that they applied the press against Qatar, I could see potentially being very, very successful against the Senegalese team. So I'm still going to stick with my predetermined expectations with them if Ecuador kind of sneaking that through in that second position behind Netherlands. So that's what I'm still looking towards. However, I think will be interesting to see is, of course, Senegal are going to give them a different challenge on that front foot that Ecuador haven't experienced thus far against Qatar in this tournament, and may be able to give a little bit something that may open up, of course, themselves at the back in times where they might be able, Ecuador might be in positions to be able to create more an offensive set than even Netherlands did, because I personally don't feel like Ecuador are going to be as kind of controlling of possession. It may be a little bit more hectic and chaotic, which could be for their benefit, compared to where Netherlands, through the whole time, they're just trying to slow walk their way throughout the game and just try to pick you apart to find that one
Right.
pass for that opportunity, versus Ecuador generally are going to generate a little bit more off of chaos, right? So that's, I think it'll be a very, very interesting game. I'm leaning Ecuador. But it should be, it will be for me kind of the game, when they eventually face each other. Definitely the game of this group that really decides things. What are your thoughts? I guess for the next couple of games for each team.
Yeah. Honestly, Ecuador are in the best position that they could be, getting the win, and now the team that they're competing against obviously has now a loss. Going into the next game, they wanted. It sounds bad, but just go in there and get a result, get a tie, keep it no, go home, and really just play for something that won't harm your chances of qualifying. It's an uphill battle for Senegal, but what we watched with Senegal, I think they do have the ability to uh, create and score goals, and hopefully with them, they likely hope that they will put a couple past Qatar, open the gates to scoring, and when it comes to Ecuador, it's going to be a heavyweight match basically. So definitely keep an eye on that. And going from now a game that definitely will have a lot riding on Senegal Ecuador later on. For Group B, USA versus Wales, a big game that again had a lot riding on it. I guess so. USA did tie Wales 1-1, but I feel like the US should be a little disappointed in the result. What did you think, Mac?
I agree. They had, but this game for me was a tale of two halves. Really, is where it was before. I think is it Kiefer or I'm gonna which was the striker for Wales that came on that plays
Yeah,
for
Kiefer Moore.
Kiefer Moore. Yes. Sorry. For a second there, I thought his first name was his last name. Yeah, Kiefer Moore. For me, it was the first half was pre Kiefer Moore, and the second
Yeah,
half was post Kiefer Moore. Right, where you can see the impact that happened. Where USA, if they were more clinical in the first half, could have seen this game out of sight. And it goes to the old adage, in my opinion, is that you can't win a game in a first half, but you can lose it. And for me, they lost all 3 points because they weren't as clinical in the first half to give them enough of a cushion where Wales they just need that one chance to get back into the game and to be able to tie it up, and that's what they were able to do. So for me, if you're American and you're looking at this game and how you performed, you got to be very, very happy with some aspects of it. But given how everything's played out, it just kind of leaves you with similar questions that they had throughout the whole qualification, where they seemed very reserved on the ball. They couldn't really score up top. There wasn't enough creativity there, and clinical players to be able to finish off chances, and that's been consistent. So it's unfortunate, but this does really leave for this. If what either team had won, you would feel them comfortable and more confident going in, potentially facing Iran and getting 3 points there and seeing themselves through. This really opens up to where either team for the rest of the next 2 games, they have to be 100% all in, because you could easily see both teams winning against Iran, and whichever team pulls out a better result of more goals, because potentially they're very likely to both lose to England, that's who goes through. So it's very exciting for the group in the tournament. But overall, I would agree in terms of USA, they should be, I feel, a little bit more hard done. What do you think?
yeah, man. I was pleasantly surprised by the U.S. Their high press really caught me by surprise. Them really not allowing Wales to get out of the first half, like you said. A lot more the U.S. dominated for that part. I like that double pivot with Musa and Adams. I felt they really covered that backline well when Dest and Robinson were going high on those wide backs for Wales, and them playing a 3 at the back and 2 wide backs really played into the hands of the US, where in terms of if they had to cover back for those wingers, those wide backs, they didn't really have anything going forward. And like you said, Kiefer Moore coming on for Dan James, who had maybe like 10 touches inside his own half, really didn't give Wales much chance. But honestly, I really liked this game because it was back and forth all game, and I'm sure you saw it. There were a lot of players going down in the second half with injuries and knocks and whatnot. There was a total of 9 minutes at a time, and honestly, it makes I think it's fine because the level of intensity that both teams were playing on, even though there were a lot of stoppages, I felt that it wasn't disrupting the pace, because as soon as the game started again, it was back and forth, which was, as a neutral, very, very interesting. I guess I did want to ask you though, Mac. For you, now the U.S. is facing England next, and Wales is facing Iran. Who would you rather be? Would you rather face England next off of this results, or would you rather have the quote unquote, no disrespect to Iran, the easier game next?
You want the easier game because you want to be able to secure points as fast as possible, in my opinion, to put the pressure on the Americans to, in this being a case where if they don't come out with something against England, they're going to have to really feel like their back's up against the wall. Because if this example kind of goes through, if the Americans end up losing to England, and Wales end up beating Iran, Wales just need a point in the last game. A tie, like a team against England at that point would have already guaranteed themselves first place, rotating players to be able to put themselves through. So you definitely want to be in Wales' position more so. Of course, that doesn't mean I would count the Americans out. All they need to do is to be able to flip that script, is to pick up a point themselves, right? And put them in a position to then heap the pressure back onto Wales. So it's definitely, and that's why for me, this is my favorite type of group, where there's the one team that's won that we all know that's going to go through, but we have that fight out for that second place. So definitely would rather be Wales in this situation, but they do have pressure on themselves because they have to play very, very differently then they play today against Iran if they want to be successful.
Yeah.
They really much try to be able to play on the counter in the second half. Their whole game plan was get the ball to Kiefer Moore, see if we can link up with him and get ourselves on the break. They'll see themselves with a lot more of the ball against Iran, and really we'll have to find out if they have the juice to be able to perform, because they need to be able to do something. Otherwise, even it really won't matter, because if they drop points there as well, then you got to look at the Americans being in a very comfortable position. I do want to say, though, I just want to touch on it. You brought up a great point in regards to the added time. That's been a consistent theme thus far in this tournament, where there has been a lot more. I think for England, there's combined like 24 minutes added between the first and second half. And I was reading an article that FIFA actually put this out, where we're looking at aggressively adding more added time, where if the ball goes out for any time, they've already started the clock, where instead of having 2 or 3 minutes, we want to be able to make sure that we're getting the full 45 minutes that people are supposed to be playing, right? And absolutely love that. Any chance to get more football, that's what it should be, and it definitely will kill those time wasters out there potentially. Which, even though you love to see just for the bands and just for the shit house, those couple seconds wasting every single moment, you love to see it, but maybe that will have an effect, because and the impact that will have on the players playing those extra minutes, those high intensity minutes, potentially could add up, and we'll kind of see. It might create more last minute drama. So I'm definitely all here for it. But to go back to your question, what do you think? Would you agree with me? Do you think Wales should feel a little bit more comfortable going into this next round of games?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, at the end of the day, they did get a good result, positive result at least. Not losing the first game, like you said, is very detrimental to their chances to go through. And even Gio mentioned it. They look like more of the more experienced international side. So definitely building on that, they want to get a win in the next game, which they are expected to. And so, yeah, definitely get a win there, set themselves up for what you could consider like a derby match against England in the last game, which anything could happen in those type of games. So yeah, definitely Wales should feel better for their sort of fixtures coming up, but I wouldn't really count out the US either. I feel that they have chances in them, and Gio wanted to mention that they do have pacey players that can cause troubles for defenses, and so that's definitely something fun that we'll be able to watch, whether they do make it out or not. And it will be interesting to watch. I guess, do you want to just quickly touch on the goals before we wrap up this part, Mac? Timothy Weah with the first goal, Pulisic playing him through. Who would have thought Christian Pulisic being the one to provide, and Weah with a great run to slide it past Hennessy. What do you think about that goal, man?
That was a great goal. It was a great movement, and definitely deserved it from the first half play. I think it was a stat that I was seeing is that the last 2 goals to be scored on against Wales, with last goal that was scored on against them in a World Cup was Pele, and then the last one is Timothy Weah. So it's funny to see it's just how much the world has changed. But you have to say that was definitely a great movement and well deserved, and one of their more incisive plays, because generally it's more been their attacking sense. It was much more out wide, and that was one of the few times they're able to create down through the middle, which is where you want to be able to create more chances to create higher quality goal scoring opportunities. So definitely great to see. I do want to say though, for the second goal after the penalty, so of course Bale is brought down inside the box. He lines to take a penalty. Did you for a second think he was going to miss?
Oh no chance, man. The look that he had on his face, he was dreaming about it for sure. He was definitely ready for that. And Matt Turner almost got there, but the power that he put on it scared Bale in that moment, man. I didn't think he was gonna miss at all.
No shot. I was so excited. I'm like, yeah, this is a goal. It's 1-1. Let's go. And I think this puts him now with Bale as Wales' all-time leading goal scorer in international major tournaments with 4 goals. So it was great for him. This is kind of this is what he's been really keeping his career alive for, just for this moment, just to be able to get to the World Cup, and he did it, and he scored. Of course, they want more out of this tournament, of course, but it's great to see him to be able to kick it off for thus far such a great start for the Wales national team. So good for him.
Yeah, and definitely we'll be keeping an eye on this group amongst the other groups. So definitely come back to us for our reviews. On that note, we'll take one last break here, Mac, and then we'll be back previewing some notable games for this week. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We're going to finish off the podcast for today, just previewing some more World Cup games for this upcoming week. And definitely a game to watch for Group C is Mexico against Poland. Very similar to US-Wales. I think the group deciding match, which at the time of recording, actually when this podcast comes out, this game may already have played. But nevertheless, we're going to give you some of our quick previews for this game. I think we had a consensus that Mexico would just edge Poland out on this game. What did you think, Mac?
I would stick with that. I definitely feel like this is going to be a little bit more of a cagey performance from both teams, where Poland, I think, is similar to, and I love that comparison to the Wales USA, because this really is kind of the odds-on favorites to finish second from either one of these two teams. Poland's going to definitely come out cagey, defensive structure, maybe trying to get them on the break. But I'll be very curious to see how aggressive Mexico will be, and I don't think they'll be as kind of open in the first half or early on in the game as maybe even the Americans were in comparison to that to that American USA Wales game. So I think this will be very much a cagey result for both teams. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out of the tie. But if a team were to win, I feel like Mexico has a little bit more creativity in the final third, other than just kind of relying on Lewandowski, as we touched upon in our preview. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously you can't count out like the likes of Lewandowski, and you said as well a player to watch will be Zielinski, who has been great for Napoli. So them really trying to cause problems for that Mexican defense. Which just looking at the names there are a couple of new names that pop out, but I feel like their midfield does have quite a lot of experience, so I feel like they'll be able to boss the game a lot more. On the flip side, though, with, like you said again, another player for Napoli, Lozano, him really hitting a stride for club side, that's going to be a way for them to sort of attack the Polish back line, and definitely something interesting to watch. These two teams will, like you mentioned, they won't be. They'll definitely try not to lose this game, and we'll expect, at least at the first half, something more along the lines of a stalemate. But maybe an individual moment of brilliance will separate these teams, and that likely will be what we watch out for. So I guess let's move on now to another game taking place, Germany versus Japan. And I know we had some arguments about the outcome of this group, first and second. But Mac, what do you think will take place for Germany and Japan?
I think Germany will shellac Japan. That's the nicest way I can phrase it. I know you and Gio had a little bit of a different opinion in our preview, so if you want to hear more of that, I guess either wait a couple seconds, listen to Ray, or go back to our preview. But for me, I think Germany should come to this game aggressive, confident, ready to be able to kind of take a strong command, because they're in a group with Spain as well, so they know that they're going to have stiff competition. So they don't have time to come out cagey if they want to finish top of the group, which will be vital, because that, generally speaking, will give you an easier path throughout the rest of the tournament. So they need to come out aggressive. So I wouldn't be surprised if Germany do give it all very early on into this game. I think Japan, if they do have a shot, would probably be on a break, on a counter with a player like Kubo. That's probably their best bet, in my opinion. Maybe out wide, try to expose one-on-one on a break, maybe, but I don't see it really. I think Germany does have too much, and they're just going to be able to come at you in waves, because as the game changes, they have the depth on the bench to adjust. So I'm very, very confident that Germany come out and will be able to get all 3 points. But what about you?
Yeah, honestly, Germany should be the favorites, and they should be coming out to get the win. But if they don't, and I think Japan, if I were them, I'll be looking to get just a at best a win, obviously, but still a tie at the very least, so that you can build upon that. The next game is against Costa Rica, and then finally the decider will be against Spain if you still have a chance by then. And so definitely more so a defensive effort from Japan. Interested to see what type of lineup Germany will produce in terms of their attacking line. But definitely, I expect Musiala to be playing a big part in that Germany front line. And Japan, they do have a number of players that could feature in that front line. That I will be interested to see how they interact with each other. Minamino now plays in the French league. Kamada plays in the German league. And Toma in the EPL, and Kubo plays in the Spanish league. And a mix of all these leagues will just be interesting to see how they mesh together. So tough first game, but for me, I'm hoping they come up with a tie, but likely favorites are Germany. So we'll see how that game goes. But let's go straight to the big one, Mac. Belgium versus Canada. And obviously, we'll be watching that for Group F on Wednesday. What do you think, Mac?
I think Canada gonna win. Okay, no, no. I think it'll be very interesting. I think there's been a couple of injury concerns for Canada right now. Is that Milan Borjan is mainly in doubt. Stefan Stakio, who's been in hot form, is in doubt, and Alphonso Davies is coming back from an injury potentially. Where he said on TV, speaking to James Duthie, he's like, "I'm good to play." But if you ask any Canadian member of the coaching staff, they haven't given a clear yes or no as of yet. So obviously, all those question marks of all probably, I would argue, key players for Canada does leave me a little bit concerned in regards to their odds coming out of this game. But I feel like if all three are healthy and are ready to go for game one, Canada could look out and come out with a very strong performance given their pace up top. I think it's probably, in my opinion, if you're having a front three of Buchanan, David, and Davies, maybe the fastest front three in the World Cup, I would argue, if not very close up to it. So against any team with that blistering pace, as long as you're going to be sound defensively, have a decent goalkeeper, you're going to give yourself a shot on the break. So I'll be very, very interested to see how they come out and perform against the Belgian team, as Gio was very excited to say on our preview podcast. This has not been hot recently. What do you think?
All right. Just follow me here.
I got you.
I think Canada, first 15 minutes of the game, high press everything. Okay. Absolutely everything. First touches, passes into the middle of the field, everything that Belgium try to do to build up from the back, Canada should be there to try and convert chances early on. If you can get an early goal and play for the tie, play for the lead or the tie, that I think is the best way for Canada to go, especially with, like you said, Gio mentioning Belgium haven't looked great in their last pre-tournament game. And so, honestly, that's going to be I think, the best approach, because they really, I think in world football, Canada is not looked at as, the major team. And so with that sort of uncertainty around the team, you can really come out and surprise other teams. And so definitely, I think the approach should be a high press, everything hard for the first 15 minutes, and then sit back and then let Davies and Buchanan and get those guys on the counter. And then we'll see if the legs of Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld can handle that. So that's my approach. Hopefully we can get out with a tie, and I'll be happy for that. Definitely something to watch on for that, Mac.
Absolutely.
Next game we're gonna preview now is Portugal versus Ghana. That's gonna be a pretty interesting match. Obviously, because I think that's for Group H. That group is pretty open. Portugal, Ghana, and Uruguay, South Korea. Portugal looking, they're expected to be the favorites in that group, and so they'll be looking to get lay down a marker and set tone, very much like England. But a lot riding in this game, and they really need a positive start. What do you think, Mac?
I think Portugal should be looking to do that. In terms of the FIFA ranking, Ghana, like I talked about in their preview, is the lowest ranking team coming into this tournament. So they should should see themselves as heavy favorites, being in a position where they can kind of stamp their authority and let their presence known. So it's good for them to be able to start off this way and then kind of build from kind of the bottom and continue to work their way up through the rest of the group stage games. So would not be surprised if Portugal come out of this game with a 3 or 4-0 win, something in that realm, and to be able to build up from there. It'll be very interesting to see again, the lineup questions for Portugal are very interesting to me, and how attacking are they going to be against a Ghana team that knows into this game they're going to go in very defensive, playing on the counter. So I'll be interested to see where certain players are playing. Prime among them is Bernardo Silva. He's definitely, in my opinion, a talismanic player for them because he can do so much of everything. He can play in a deep holding position. He can play as a 10. He can play as a winger. Where do you really want him? In this game, in my opinion, I would not be surprised to see him similarly as like kind of an 8 beside a 6 to then connecting, being the guy that's connecting the defense to Bruno. A player like that in this position, I think that would be ideal for this type of game, especially without defensive Ghana are going to have to be. But overall, I think they should have a good performance. What about you?
Yeah, honestly, looking at some of the Ghana team, you can see definitely an approach to hitting Portugal on the break. The likes of Mohamed Kudus, Iñaki Williams, players who are tricky and will look to isolate players wide and create chances from there. So Portugal don't really lack in the wide back department, but given their offensive approach, definitely if you throw one of the wide backs up, it leaves you exposed. So definitely will be interesting to see that. But as you said, Portugal should be favorites for this game, and so I do expect them to get the win. Though if they don't, a lot of talking points for that group, and so we'll definitely keep an eye on that. And lastly, Brazil versus Serbia. Man, I'm just ready to watch Brazil cook. What do you think, Mac?
I'm definitely on board for that. It's interesting that Brazil will probably don't have one of the easier games to be able to start off in the group, with them being with Cameroon and Switzerland. So Serbia, Switzerland, you can see them as being definitely kind of similar types of profile of teams that they'll end up facing. So it's good they do have a somewhat of a stiffer test than some of the other big teams that have faced thus far in their first game, with let's say England facing Iran, Argentina facing Saudi Arabia tomorrow. Those are a little bit easier starts, where Serbia will have a little bit more to them to be able to create against Brazil. So it's a very interesting kind of starting match for them. Of course, I agree with you in terms of Brazil should come out and are the tournament odds-on favorites to be able to win. So they got to be looking at and put a performance in, be able to stamp their authority, just like England did today. So I would be shocked if Brazil not just win, but win by a couple of goals.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely another game to watch, and then we'll definitely be covering that in our next podcast. Which leads me to our conclusion for today's podcast. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's at @house_of_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, feel free to get in touch with us via email as well. That's houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be Friday, when we review the notable games taking place this week for the 2022 World Cup. On that note, Mac, thank you for joining us.
It's coming home, baby.
And thank you guys for listening. Peace out.